For many years, my business partner and I have heard from men who owned or led businesses who were really struggling to grow their company or their career without screwing up their lives, and they feel like they've lost some freedom. So to help them, we've developed a proprietary framework called the launch sequence. This process takes men down the path of getting what they want in the most important areas of their lives. Then they can really kind of begin to feel present and fulfilled while making the kind of big impact that we're put on this earth for. So if you're a business owner or a key leader between the ages of 30 and 49, and you feel like you've got some unrealized potential, you really want to become more than what you become, you're absolutely at the right place here. Now, today, let's get down to business. In today's episode, you're going to be hearing from Troy McClain. I am super pumped up for this one. I don't say that all the time, and you know that, Lions, I don't. But Troy, he and I had a real cool conversation about a month ago. You might recognize him as a finalist from the first season of Donald Trump's The Apprentice, or should I say President Donald Trump's Apprentice. However, his business skills have been in play long before that. He was born in Alaska, raised in Montana by his mom. Troy, along with his two sisters, really learned quickly the meaning of hard work and sacrifice. And Troy later applied these lessons to his business ventures. So having built up and sold two separate companies to national organizations, Troy understands the meaning of sacrifice, how to deal with the changes in the market, and how to push through barriers to achieve greatness. He's been highlighted. Now, get this, guys. He's been highlighted in publications like USA Today, Fast Company, Success Magazine, and many, many more there. He's also achieved awards such as things like the 40 Under 40 Award, the Better Business Bureau's Integrity Counts Awards. And this is one very special to my heart, Troy, but he's got the High Honors Gold Medal from the International Special Olympics Committee for his dedication and service to that community. And by the way, I've done a lot with him too, Troy. But Troy, I want to welcome you. I'm super pumped up. And I got to ask you this before we get started, buddy. Are you ready to roar today, my friend?
Brother, I'm ready to roar. Let's grip and rip, grab and go. I tell you what, super, super excited.
This is going to be awesome. Listen, so I just talked a little bit about who you are kind of on paper. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where do you live, family status, and all that?
You bet. First and foremost, where I'm at a higher level today because I'm on the phone with you, Robert.
Good answer. Okay. Okay. Cut. We're done. No, keep going.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited. I live in Boise, Idaho, or at least that's where I get my mail. I technically live in Delta Airlines because I push about 200,000 air miles a year. Today, I'm with my beautiful bride, my lovely sister, and my beautiful mama. And we run a brick and mortar business that does professional speaking, merger, acquisition, and marketing. And it's just something that I got into from a passion point and from running with the pride. So that's what I do today.
And I'm so glad that you understand what the pride is, because some people they go, well, isn't it a herd alliance? It's like, nope, it's not a herd. It's a pride. Okay, so good for you. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood. You were born in Alaska. You were raised in Montana. Let's kind of go through that journey a little bit and hear kind of what your childhood was like.
You bet. I got to tell you, for me, my life was absolutely incredible. It was amazing. I remember describing it as fun. It was only later on in life that I met with psychologists and psychologists when I was going on the first season of The Apprentice. And they said, hey, you're missing a few words, a few letters on either side of that word fun. And I go, what's that? And they go, your life wasn't fun. It was dysfunctional. What are you talking about? I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. My mom is and was a beautiful lady, but she was a bouncer of a bar and a truck driver.
Wow.
So Mama was a tough lady. She was 2 bolts taller than 5 foot, a very robust lady. She's had a couple knee surgeries on both knees. So she walks with a little bit of a limp. And my father, God bless my father, he was a pneumatic construction worker. So he just was a nail bender and he was chasing the trade. But more than chasing the trade, he liked chasing other ladies. Mom, she just couldn't put up with that. So Mom, she kicked him to the curb, and God bless him, he went and started his own family and his own life. But that left me, my mom, and my kid sister. My kid sister is profoundly deaf. She's developmentally delayed, and she's Inuit Eskimo. But I got to tell you, she's the absolute love of my life. I remember the very first time, the most profound thing that I really learned from my mom was learning lessons from beyond the obvious. Because I remember somebody teasing my kid sis about being deaf, teasing her about not being able to hear. And I came home one day and after whooping his butt, my mom said, Troy, you can't keep changing people's minds by reconstructing their face. Now, I thought, well, Mom, that's what you do. Why can't I? She goes, no, just don't work that way, son. And she goes, aside from that, who's telling you that she can't hear? Now, this is an obvious question that I didn't know the answer to, Robert. I go, what are you talking about, Mom? She's deaf. We already know she's deaf. We're fluent in sign language. She can't hear. My mom flicks me in the mouth. She goes, you fool. Who told you that you had to listen with your ears when you can hear with your heart? And that was the first time I started looking at life beyond the obvious. And I took that into my business.
Let me ask you a question. And actually, let me tell you kind of a similarity here. My dad also enjoyed women. And about the time I was 8 years old, my mom kicked him to the curb. And I have an older sister, not a younger sister. So our stories are very, very the same. Knowing the success that you've had, you handled that pretty well. What would you say were the advantages of the separation and the divorce between your parents? Because I see tons in my own life, but what do you see?
Yeah, it is a great advantage. And I think that the pride that's listening right now, you need to know you're all great. Each and every one of you are great. Some of you just don't know it yet, but we know it. And that's why when you run in a pride, when you run in a pack, you all raise each other's bar. But more than raising the bar, we start to become the bar. I don't want you to fall below and I don't want you to raise it. I want you to be it. And you form a social unit of elite, like-minded people. And that's what my mom did. For me, it wasn't as much as it was adversity as it was opportunity. First, Ma taught me how to look at life beyond the obvious. And Ma taught me that, well, I'll tell you what, the big thing Mom taught me is I remember my mom asking me, hey, should you go live with your grandpa? And I go, why? And she goes, because you probably need a man in your life. I said, Mama, you're man enough for both of us. You're tough enough.
There you go. That's a good mom right there.
That's right. That's right. So, but I will tell you this, that what she taught me was the opportunities that are available to us. And while I lacked having that father figure, I didn't lack having mentorship. And it's important having that.
Extremely the same. Okay. I didn't have the dad. You know, my mom did not remarry until I was out of the house, you know, in my 20s. But I had mentors in my life who actually changed my life. They literally, and I would not have had those mentors if my dad had stayed around. And I can remember, Troy, it's kind of a crazy story, but I've got 3 sons, ages 35 to 28 right now. But I can remember thinking when I was about 14 that if the good Lord ever gave me kids, I was going to be an awesome dad because I knew what a bad one looked like, you know. And so it really propelled me towards taking it super serious with my boys and just being the kind of dad that, but I didn't know how to do it because nobody had ever done it to me. So I really had to figure out how do you be a dad because I didn't have an example, you know, but it was all good. And I think so much of that has to do with events are going to happen in your life, Lions. They are. Bad stuff's going to happen. The way you respond to it, the way that Troy responded to it is going to determine the outcome that you get. Do you agree with that, Troy?
Robert, I do. And here's what I'll tell you. I actually think you did have a good example. I take a little contrarian point of view because you had a great example of what not to do.
Yeah.
And so you had the antonym in front of you. And the antonym of worthlessness is significance. The antonym of being unfaithful is being faithful. The antonym of a bad father is being a great father. And because you discovered that there's a positive and a negative, you just built your positive career. You built your positive life off the negative examples of what not to do. And for that, we ultimately do have to give thanks. We have to give thanks and gratitude. My favorite movie was Grit, True Grit with the man. I mean, he was awesome. Come on, the Duke was great. And my mom said, "You know what that stands for?" And I said, "No, I don't. It stands for graciousness, respect, integrity, and trust." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, Troy. To be a man, you have to be gracious. You have to be respectful. You have to have integrity, and you have to show trust." You see, Mom built life from beyond the obvious, and that's what she showed me. I remember being moved around from house to house, home to home, job to job. We've been evicted out of a few houses. Dateline did a story on us, and Dateline said, Troy was evicted out of 7 houses. And my mom never painted it that way. You know what my mom would say? "Hey, Troy, I got some great news. The great news is we're in between success cycles. I'm like, what? She's like, we're just in between success cycles and we're going to upgrade houses. Upgrade houses? What are you talking about? Instead of looking at it as being evicted, instead of looking at it as failing, you look at it as upgrading. You look at it as being in between success cycles. I looked up before I come on your show because I love what you guys are doing, Robert. I love the way that you guys describe it. I looked up the definition of pride. Pride, yeah. Pride is a group of lions forming a social unit, but it's also a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements and achievements of those with whom one is closely associated to. And I had a hard time being proud of the things that I did. I had a hard time giving myself compliments when I would sell a house, when I would build a business, when I'd get ourselves out of debt. I had a hard time doing that. But if you run with the pride, I never had a hard time being proud of my mom and taking glory in some of her achievements because I got to say I was a part of that. But because I got to say I was a part of that, I got responsibility to live up to that pride. I got responsibility that says, whoa, you can't go out and be the Yahoo anymore. If I run with the lion's den, I represent Robert. Robert, you represent me. And all you lions out there, we represent each other. So if you're having a hard time being proud of yourself, be proud of the pride that you're running with. Because we are not raising the bar. We are the bar.
The bar. I love that, man. Golly, that's just, okay. We're on the same wavelength there. You moved from Alaska down to Montana. And then what I'd like to do is kind of go through that move. How old were you when you went down to Montana? And then let's kind of start going down the path of what did your start in business look like? And, where was that? And what were you drawn towards?
Yeah, Mom decided that my father was chasing the construction trade up in Alaska. And so moved the family up to Alaska. And then I moved from every Indian village and Eskimo village you can name. I lived in Kwethluk, Yak Yak, Tumitak, Barrow, Alaska. My kid's sister is from Barrow, Alaska. Ended up in Anchorage, Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska. But then Mom wanted to get back to her kin. She wanted to get back to her family. And what she would do is we'd drive the Alcan. Every summer, we would drive that Alcan from Alaska to Montana just so that I could be introduced to values, so that I could be introduced to family units. And ultimately, Mom said, we're going to live there full time. So it was the summer before I turned a man, as by defined by age, that Mom said, we need to go there. And I was like, Mom, man, I need to have a home. I need to settle in somewhere. And so we got to Montana, and the Eureka, Montana. If you haven't heard of Eureka, it's 6 miles south of the Canadian border. 6 miles south of the Canadian border, most of us were loggers. Most of us were ranch hands. Most of us were skinning our fists on something other than a contract. But it taught me the values of hard work. It taught me the values of working as a group. Because when you live in a small rural community, you can't be so arrogant as to rely on yourself. In fact, you got to look up when you say thank you, and you got to look inside when you ask what needs improvement. But you look around when you want to know what insulates you, and that's your community. And I thought to myself, I'm going into business. I'm just in between success cycles, and I can build a culture. I didn't know how, but I sure to hell knew why. I knew why I was going to do it, because I was going to do something for the legacy of the last name McLean. I was just going to do it. And so Mama and I, we started out, and I said, Mom, what are we going to do? And she said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I ended up getting into real estate first, and I bought my first house on owner contract from a gentleman named Old Man Bainey. Old Man Bainey owned an old slaughter shed, and he was retiring the slaughter shed, and hired us to clean it out. And Ma and I said, we can live in this. You guys can't live in this. I said, oh, hell yeah, we can live in it. If we can clean it out, we can live in it. And he said, well, Troy, I was going to sell it. Well, how are you going to sell it? Well, you got to go get money from a bank. Well, what if I can't get money from the bank? Well, let me show you what owner contract is. And I had that mentor. I had that proverbial, the king of the jungle in that area say, let me show you something. And let me tell you this, you guys listening on the phone, you got to know enough to know you don't know enough. But I will tell you that success leaves tracks. All you got to do is follow the tracks from the big lions. Just follow them. And so I followed those tracks into real estate, ultimately built up to where I had 34 houses, ultimately moved myself into, accelerated story here, but moved myself into the lending industry. I built up my lending practice and sold that off in 2006 to Pinnacle Financial.
That is crazy. And how long did that take? But between the time that you moved into that first home with your mom and the time that you actually sold that lending company to Pinnacle, how long did that take you?
Robert, it only took me about 24 success cycles, but it took me several years. I was a serial entrepreneur for many, many, many seasons. And I was that guy that people think that entrepreneurism is a cookie cutter process, and they think they can buy a book, read a book, and then go do what that guy did or what that gal did. But in fact, that's not the case, because if you actually look at the statistics, there's just as many failures in entrepreneurism today as there was in 1950, except for the fact there is 100 times more books, tapes, CDs, audios, and technology out there that tells you how to. And you ask yourself, well, if there's that much more how to, why is there equal amount of failures? And I believe the fundamental flaw is because people think that entrepreneurism is cookie cuttered. They think they could read a book and then they can do just like that guy did. Well, if that was the case, we'd all be doing it. Entrepreneurialism is customizable and unique, and it's based on personality, not process. You and I, Robert, we have the same personality. So I bet you we have a very similar journey. I was an opportunistic entrepreneur. I would see something and I'd say, I can do that. For sure, I can do that. Oh, I'll go do this. And I based myself on competition, and I based myself on, well, I'm just better at that than that person, even though he doesn't know it. Other people I have a real good friend, Nate Calvin, mechanical engineer. He's just a builder. He just builds to build. And he measures not on competition, but on things. He's like, I built this, I built that. He doesn't even look at his EBITDAs. He doesn't look at his tax returns. He looks at how many office buildings he owns. He looks at how many employees he has. He looks at how big he built the next technology. And so he has a different personality than I do. He stays with one thing all the time. I get very, I'm going to go from house building to my one success cycle. You get into houses. Then I got into working out. And I thought, one of my houses I'm going to turn into a gym. I'm going to build a health club. And so I went out and built a house club, diverted away from my goal, and built a health club. I built the Athletes Arena on 2001 North Division in Spokane, Washington. And I turned around and sold it because I was like, real estate. What I never got away from was my core. My core was real estate. But I just wanted to share that with the ones that are listening, because don't think it's cookie cutter. You got to find your personality archetype. And you listen to those. Listen to this, you guys. You listen to those who have been where you are and are where you want to go. That's who you listen to.
Find those people. And now, okay, when you're going down that road, this is good. When you're going down that road and you find that person who's where you want to be, okay, how do you approach that person in a way that they go, I want to work with Troy, or I want to invest my time in him? Because many, many people would go, man, I don't have time for this kind of stuff. How do you do that?
For me, I believe in a couple principles and a couple laws. The laws of being vulnerable. The first guy I went to after Old Man Beatty was a guy named Steve Rouse, who has now passed away. But you can look him up. Steve Rouse owned Rouse's Towing. He owned Division Towing, Divine Towing. He was a big tow truck driver. Now, I've got a funny story how I got in front of him, because I tried to get in front of him the first couple times to tell him I had ideas. I thought he was the guy I wanted to follow. But, man, I couldn't get past the secretary. Well, he owned a tow truck company. So I don't recommend everyone do this, just so you know. But I decided to let my truck get towed. And I'm like, I'm going to let my truck get towed. And then I wouldn't pay the bill. And I said, the only way I'll pay the bill is if I meet the owner. And the owner's like, what? And he goes, all right. So I owed him $1,100. And I was like, listen, I just had to get in front of you. And it was worth it for me to be in front of you. But here's the deal. I'm broke. I got no money, but I got the heart of a lion. And I'll do for loyalty what Stonehenge does for rocks. I just need you to lead me. After he picked himself up out of his chair laughing, he went, I've never had anybody like you in front of me. Here's what it's going to take. And I said, great. Can I borrow $1,100 to pull my truck out?
And he loved you at that point. There's no doubt by mine. How could you not? I mean, seriously, that's so good. When you look back, and okay, well, actually, let's go back. So you sold the finance company. And what year was that when you sold that?
2006.
2006. So from then, right now, you do a lot of keynote speaking around the country. When did that start for you?
The keynote speaking started early in my career. I started getting asked to come to local community meetings, to local town halls. And I definitely have the gift of the gab, but I also have an ability to paint vision, an ability to paint, not teach people how to find the answers, but train others to find the truth. And we start training for the truth. And the truth is life is simple, but it's not easy. The truth is success leaves tracks. All you do is got to follow them. And the truth is I pulled myself up from my bootstraps from one unit at a time into a new unit at a time. And people wanted to hear that, but it really exploded when I went on the first season of The Apprentice. First season of The Apprentice.
What year was that?
That was 2003.
2003.
Yeah, it aired in 2004, but we went on in 2003.
Now, how did they find you, Troy?
Oh, man, it was crazy. 16 years earlier from that, in 1989, my senior yearbook quote said, "Donald Trump, I'm coming." That was my senior yearbook quote because my mama had said, you got to put pen to paper. You got to tell the universe what you want. And if you aim for the sky and you hit a skyscraper, by God, you're still doing okay. But I need you to aim somewhere, Troy. And I thought, all right, I'm going to do that. And so the book, Donald Trump, Art of the Deal, had just come out. I read the book, thought, man, if this guy can do it, so can I. And I wrote him a letter and mailed him my yearbook. It said, Donald Trump, I'm coming. That was in 1989. 2003, The Apprentice advertises that it's come that they're looking for contestants. There was 215,000
Wow.
215,000 applicants. There was 11,000 face-to-face interviews, 250 callbacks, and then it got down to 50 of us. And when it got down to 50 of us, Robert, I was the only one selected that had a high school diploma. Everyone else had some type of a degree or advanced degree. And I thought, this is perfect. You see, life to me is perfect. It wasn't an obstacle. It was an opportunity. Mm. And I just looked at it that way. Are you familiar? Are you a fisherman, Robert, at all? Do you like fishing?
Yeah.
In Hawaii, they got a fish called ono. And by the way, great eating fish too. Ono stands for, in Hawaiian terms, it means perfect. It means beautiful. It means perfection. And to me, I looked at that and I went, that's an acronym. Ono. Opportunities, not obstacles. And I thought, man, life is ono. And when they told me I was the only one with just a high school diploma, I thought this is an opportunity. It's not an obstacle. This means I can stand out versus try to fit in, because automatically I was different. I made it all the way into the finals. I got fired for lack of education. And when I got fired for lack of education, my speaking career went through the roof because all these entrepreneurs out there that had pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, all these corporations out there that have high-level management, that are soldiers, that are warriors, that are Mustangs, that are the true lions of the pride, that don't have the degrees, went, BS. That kid's got a story, and I want him to share it because it's mine. And today I'm a professional speaker that I travel all over the world, and I teach on the principles of the best way to get ahead is to give back. I teach on the principles of success leaves tracks. All you do is got to follow them. I get hired by Lockheed Martin. I get hired by Raytheon. I get hired by Pinnacle Financial. I just got hired by a Christian-based boot camp for business called Clemmer and Associates. And people want to come in and not just hear the story, but find the fundamental tracks to follow.
It's so interesting too, Lyons, when you think about that story. 53%, you probably heard this, Troy, but 53% of entrepreneurs are like ADD. And most of them really don't like school because it's too confining. They feel like they're stuck, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I totally agree with you on that. You know, in Lyons, remember this, you know, if you're smart and you can go to college and you can do that part, go ahead and do that part because it's great for you. But you know what, if you're listening to this and you don't have a college degree, you know what, if you work hard enough, you can be more successful than many, 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 many people who have college degrees, because sometimes they get jaded and they conform to things that really don't make you that successful. So, you know, just keep that in the back of your mind. Troy, you've had a ton of success in your life, but when you look back of your career, what would you say is the one business accomplishment that you're most proud of and why?
First, I just want to segue back to what you said to the
Mm-hmm.
lions. And I want to give a little thing that I tell people, and I'll tell each and every one of you lions, just because you don't pay tuition does not give you permission to stop paying attention.
Mm.
You keep paying attention. And by the way, just because you did pay attention doesn't give you permission to stop. Just because you did pay tuition doesn't mean you stop paying attention either. Each and every one of us have our own journey. And some of those journeys are going to take us down the path of getting a degree. And that's honorable. That's respectful. I'm proud of you. I respect you and I honor you. But those that did not take that path, don't think that you're not going to be honored. Don't think you're not going to be respected. But remember, you have a responsibility to pay attention and learn from the greats. As far as my personal proudest business moment, for me, business is life and life is business. So I don't discern the two. I made a business decision to be a great husband. I made a business decision to be a great family man. I made a life decision to make income. I made a life decision to have a net worth. Because if you have a net worth, you can do things like give back. If you have a net worth, you can become an influencer. Imagine being in that lion's den, and when you roar, people listen. And we measure on money. It's a simple truth, we do. So I made a life decision to have money, but I made a business decision to be a respectful, honorable husband, to be a respectful, honorable son. And my proudest moment for me, my mom, just so everybody knows, is a 3-time recovering drug addict. While my mom was in between a lot of success cycles and painted a lot of positive things, she did succumb to addiction. And on November 26, 4 years ago, we almost lost her for the second time. And we made a life decision to stop loving her to death, and we're going to start loving her to life. But one of the things that she did in 1998 is she almost lost everything. And she said, son, if I ever put my daughter down, would you pick her up? And I said, yeah, Mama, I would. So in 98, I took over guardianship of my kid's sister. My kid's sister is profoundly deaf. She's developmentally delayed. She's been a special athlete for close to 30 years. And that was a proud moment to be able to do that. And I'll tell you why that was a proudest moment in my business. It's a proudest moment in my business life because I had the net worth to do it. I had the wherewithal to do it. How many of you out there want to do something grand, want to do something kind and giving, but you don't have the means to do it? It's like being trapped in a cage. It's like having your hands handcuffed. And I felt so good to be able to tell my mama, I got it. I got it. I can pick it up.
Big thing there. In Lions, when you think about that, we actually, I'm just going to say this. We have a client who we work with who does very, very well, Troy, very well, but he doesn't have to work hard for it. And he knows that he could do much, much better. And we started really doing a study with him on abundance and what that actually means. And the driving thing for him when he finally figured this out was he's got a gift from God of earning income, and he can earn so much more. So now he earns income to give back, and it brings him joy. Awesome. But he never really got that. It was like, why am I earning all this income? It's, and so I think when you serve your sister, that brings you joy, but you have to have the network. You have to have the income in order to be able to do that. So men, lions, there's things out there for you too to invest in like that. And it takes work, but you also get joy from doing that stuff. Troy, one thing we like to say, I was just in Africa last week, believe it or not, for 10 days. I was in Kenya. It was kind of wild. And we went to this preserve and I saw everything in the world animal-wise except for a lion. And that was the one thing I wanted to see. I'm serious. We searched and searched. But if you came upon a lion out on the savannah, which I would suggest that you don't do, by the way, but you'd find that he had a whole bunch of scars on him and he got those in battle, but many, many times with those scars come some of our most valuable lessons and our deepest wisdom from that. But Troy, where did your deepest scar or failure come from? And what were some of the details of that? And I really want to hear one takeaway lesson you learned from that.
Mm-hmm. My deepest scar and lesson, first, I'll tell everybody that I'm a fallible guy. I make mistakes. And that's probably the takeaway that you should get out of this is it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be truthful. In fact, I've lied. I've cheated. I've stolen. And what I did in my early comings up of my business is I forged some documents that I probably shouldn't have forged. In fact, I just shouldn't have. And because I thought it was all about the money. I thought money, 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 money. Thank goodness I had a good boss that called me out on it and I didn't get in trouble. And he says, let me point out what happens when you start sacrificing integrity for money. And he starts showing me a long list of people going down the line of, man, you thought this guy was great? Well, look what he did here. You thought this guy was great? Well, look what he did to here. About that moment, my mom had come in to pick me up for lunch. And here I am, a grown young adult. I'm in my mid-20s now. I'm a grown young adult in my mid-20s. I'm cool. I'm cool as cake, man. And I'm taking mom everywhere. I'm doing everything. And I knew what was going to come out of that guy's mouth. My boss, who could turn me in, who could do this, who could do that, says, I think I'm going to tell your mom. And I thought, oh, Jesus. I felt like a little kid again. And I remember my mom sitting me down, and this is in my mid-20s. And she said, son, let me tell you something. I know you're going to be big because you were born to be big. She reshared this story with me later on The Apprentice, but this is when she first told it to me. She said, I know you're going to be big. She goes, here's what I want you to do. As you start to rise up, with one hand, reach out and grab everything at top that you can. Grab the stars, grab the moon, grab it all. She goes, but with the other hand, I want you to hold on firm to the ground. I want you to hold on to your values that your mama taught you. I want you to hold on to your integrity. I don't want you to get enticed with greed, because the day you let go with the hand on the ground and you go to grab both of it with both hands, that's the day you lose your integrity. That's the day you stumble into space and nobody can get you back. And it's also the day your mother's going to kill you.
And punch you out. Good for mamas. You know, I told you before, actually, when we were talking earlier, I said, my son looks very similar to you, very strong. And, you know, my first wife passed away but I had three sons and they were all mama's boys and they're all big, strapping, strong boys. I watched my wife, who was like 5'3", weighed about 130, knock my son up against the refrigerator. He was like at about 220 or something. And he's like, Mama, no, Mama, no. Oh, he would have torn me up anyway. I'm sorry. Mamas are good for that kind of stuff.
Mamas are good for that.
Every successful person has a meaningful person or a defining moment that's really encouraged or inspired them. But what one person or event in your life was your biggest inspiration in your walk towards really becoming a guy who's got a pretty darn extraordinary life?
Yeah, obviously my mom.
Yeah, Mom, I know.
You know, big defining factor. I want to go back just a little bit and then I'll answer that. First, I want to speak to the gentleman that you're talking about that has a substantial net worth and sounds like that he just has the knack of making money. I want to compliment him. I want to honor him. I want to respect him because what he's discovered now is purpose. Because what we're great at doesn't mean that we feel good about it. I'm great at being a fighter. I don't feel good about it. I've been in more fisticuffs than most anybody on this phone or listening. I've been arrested twice for assault. I've got 3 shoulder surgeries, 3 wrist surgeries, been stabbed in the rib twice. I'm great at being a fighter, but I didn't feel good about it. And the gentleman that you're speaking to, I bet you he feels good now. And discovering that significance, discovering that purpose, I'll tell you what, go to bed with a dream, wake up with a purpose, and you'll find direction. Go to bed without a dream, you'll wake up without a purpose, and you'll have no direction. And you'll start trying to do the things that I did. And if you don't have a ma like I did to keep you in line or whoop your butt, then you're going to end up behind a set of bars that you don't want to be behind. So yeah, my compliments to that gentleman. And now to what you asked, what my biggest experience or a person that inspires me, for sure my mom, but also a community. There's a massive community out there. It doesn't have to be an individual. There is a community that overcomes adversity every day. And I look to that community to find my story within them. That community is the special needs community. That community is the former men and women of the military that are learning to transition from the battlefield to the business field. That community is this podcast. That community is you, Robert. While I may be a teacher to some, I'm a student to most. And I look forward and look up to those that can guide me and can lead me. And then ultimately, I look straight up to the big man upstairs and say, that's my beacon, that's my north.
And by the way, some of your answers are so good that I just sit here going, dang. And so I'm sorry for the pauses, Lyons, but I'm writing all this stuff down. Troy, we want the members of the Lion's Den to have extraordinary lives. So how do you specifically define an extraordinary life? What does that mean to you?
For me, an extraordinary life is a life with purpose, a life with significance, and a life of, if you want to know the secret is there's no secret. The secret is the best way to get ahead is to give back. Give of yourself, give to others, live the life of a servant, not a salesman. Look at the Dalai Lama. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. Look at those that have a life of servitude. They have riches beyond riches, but measured not just in their pocketbook. I had a great opportunity to meet with Warren Buffett. I've met with the likes of, dealt with the likes of, gotten restraining orders from the likes of Warren Buffett, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Carlos Sims, Mark Cuban. But Warren Buffett shared a great story, insight for me. He said a private jet, flew me to Omaha, Nebraska. This is the Oracle of Omaha. And he flies me to Omaha, Nebraska. He says, if your definition of success has anything to do with money, you have already failed. Your definition of success has to do with everything other than money. And the byproduct of your definition should include money. You see, I want my wife to have the safest vehicle on the road. I want my kid's sister to have the safest vehicle on the road. I want her to have the best education for the special needs community that's available. And the byproduct of wanting those is I need to have money. But if I define money by making 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, selling a company for 2 million, if I define it purely by the money, I've already failed. Our extraordinary life has to do with significance, purpose, faith, and community. You want to surround yourself with a like-minded community of great leaders that are willing to give for the betterment of the cause versus the betterment of themselves. And you will find that the relationships are your riches. And by the way, the byproduct of that, I make some pretty good money. I tease people because all I have is a high school diploma. And when I went on the Donald Trump's first season of The Apprentice, I told him I had a PhD. He says, I don't get it. I said, Mr. Trump, I have my PhD. He goes, I don't see where you got that. I said, Mr. Trump, my PhD, I was poor, hungry, and driven. PhD. Today, I tell people I got my MBA. My MBA is my massive bank account.
Yeah, I love it. Poor, hungry, and driven. I'm writing that down too, so I'm sorry. And by the way, something you said a couple of minutes ago, which makes so much sense, and Lions, listen to this again, be a servant, not a salesman. But on the other hand, it's okay to sell so that you can get the income so that you can serve. And by the way, being a great salesman, yes, which there's no doubt in my mind, Troy, that you're awesome at sales, but that affords you to be able to go back and serve because you've got the funds to be able to do that. So I love that thought. Servant, not a salesman there. We're at a part of the show right now that I call the lion sprint. And if I had seen that lion, I did see antelope, but I didn't see that lion. If I had seen him and he was chasing an antelope, he would be single-minded and he would be going after it really, really quickly. So these questions are kind of short questions. They don't necessarily have to be short answers. But what would be one specific thing you'd like to change in your life right now that would help you have an even more extraordinary life?
The one specific thing I'd like to change in my life right now is to have more people to help.
More people to help. How would you find those people?
I would find those people through podcasts like yourself, through mentors like yourself. And I'd find those people that outwardly people think have everything. I've met a lot of people with high net worth that feel hollow inside. And they're they keep searching for the answers. And I keep telling them to stop searching for the answers. Start training for the truth. For example, Robert, if you want to meet a lion, all you do is got to come to Idaho. I have 2 dogs. I have black and tans and walkers. Lion hunting starts here in the next couple of weeks. So you come up here and we'll put you to the test of grit. And you want to see a beautiful creature in its natural habitat. You want to see how a creature works. The most important thing you'll discover when you start tracking success is you. And all you got to do is start tracking success. And I tell these high net worth guys that. I tell everybody that. How would I go about it? Continuing to surround myself around people like you.
What is the one most important daily discipline or habit that you've developed that's really helped you achieve an extraordinary life?
Read.
Read.
Readers are leaders.
Totally agree. Which, by the way, takes me to the next question. What have you recently read or listened to that's really had a big impact on your thinking that you'd recommend to the Lion's Den? And by the way, Lions, right now, you're hearing a train. That's okay. You know what? We're live right now. We can't stop that train, so you're going to hear it for just a second or so. But what have you read there, Troy?
But what that is, Lions, is that's the McLean train getting ready to drop a bunch of information on you. For me, the classic books, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. You got James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. Right now, I'm really into Viktor Frankl.
Mm-hmm.
There's a gentleman named Viktor Frankl who is a turn-of-the-century guy. He is a neuroscientist. He was a mentee under Freud. And one of the most significant things that I read and that he says is, in order to get ahead, you have to seek to understand, then seek to be understood. And so seek to understand before you seek to be understood. The next time you're in that sales meeting, the next time you're talking to your beautiful bride or your child, instead of trying to get them to understand your position, you have to seek to understand there, then seek to be understood.
Was that in Man's Search for Meaning? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, you did say, what was it? James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. That book I read every year in January, every year. And would you agree it's a 45-minute to 1 hour read? It's a short book.
Short book, super easy read. For me, I was real challenged with reading. I can tell you guys that, when you hear me say reading, you can take it to audios.
Mm-hmm.
You can just start. You don't have to be 100% better in your change today. You only have to be 1%. Now, I'm a simpleton, so I come from country math. And I figure if I'm 1% better per day in 365 days, I'm at least 365% better. But we know if you're smarter than I am, we know there's compounding interest on that 1%. So you're going to be exponentially improved. You just have to commit to be 1% better per day to your practice of greatness.
Perfect stuff. We also, one of our lighthouse values, we call them, is have fun and live large. And I know you do a lot of stuff that's fun. I actually just saw your office, which looks like it's a lot of fun there. But what are the ways that you have fun when you're not working or when you're not in that office? I know you do jujitsu. What other things do you do?
For me, I love that you guys have that as a principle because you have to be happy now. You have to be. Happiness is a decision. It's a decision. So be happy now. For me, I love jujitsu. I'm a 2-time Brazilian champion in my weight division and in my belt class. I love philanthropy. Philanthropy, if you look beyond the obvious, has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the love of mankind. The definition, the Greek word of philanthropy is the love of mankind. And I love mankind. I love helping the entrepreneur, but bowling on Monday nights with the Special Olympics, jiu-jitsu's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now, if you want to talk my religion is fishing and hunting. So fishing and hunting. I love to fly fish. Anybody that wants to trade out a speech for fly fishing, go ahead and give me a call.
And by the way, you know that Bill's sitting right behind me here. He is a fly fisherman, Bill. We're just talking about fly fishing. So, okay. So you guys live pretty close. So this is going to happen.
Joining me out west to fish next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
We're going to make that actually happen. Believe me, we're going to do that. Okay. But I want to go down one more road with you. And well, first of all, how could our audience say thank you or learn more about you? Where would they go? Let's start with that.
Yeah, for me, I really believe in chain of command. I believe in hierarchy. So I'd start with you, Robert. If you guys are listening to this podcast, if you guys are a part of this, you want to go to the person that brought you to the dance and you want to go to Robert. Things don't happen by mistake. Things happen by design. And you and I happened by design to get on a phone in September. You and I happened by design to share the same energy and frequency and vibration. And therefore, it needs to be a part of that respect that you go to Robert first. If you do want to look me up, you can easily go to troymclean.com. But I'd always invite you and encourage you to look at the privilege. Rank has its privileges. And you Lions people, right now, part of this pride, Rank has its privileges, the privileges of listening to this. And I call that RIP. Rank has its privileges. But Rank also has its responsibilities. So make sure you share that responsibility with the person that brought me here and say thank you to you, Robert. And I call that rip and rear. And we as men, we as entrepreneurs, we as a part of a significant unit that is doing greatness for others need to make sure that we rip and rear all the time. You always can secondarily look me up at troymclean.com as my email, or just go to troymclean.com. But I'd say
make sure you rip from here and go directly back to you, Robert.
I want to throw this out to you too, Lyons. Okay, you just heard him talking about the vibration, the energy and all that. You hear the energy that Troy has. As many of you probably know, I've been a speaker for, 13, 14 years, something like that. Who do you know who could hire or who would need to hire a high energy, high impact, high inspiration speaker? You need to put that person on to Troy, okay? And you need to look it up and go to Troy McClain, MCCLAIN.com, and look at that. And don't let this go by, okay? Because this is needed out there, this type of energy and this type of really a lot of wisdom. I've got to say this, Troy. Although you have a high school education, you're an educated man. Very, very much so. Much, much, much more educated than a lot of people that have more years in education than you do because you're self-made. And you've taken the time to do this, and it reeks from you in a very good way. I say that with a lot of respect to you there. Also, if you could give one piece of advice to the Lions Den in one sentence besides like just keep going, what would that advice be?
Back to the basics. In one sense, I would say master the basics. It doesn't matter how many tools you have in your battle rattle. It doesn't matter how many tools you have in your war chest. The tools that you rely on the most are going to be your basics. And so always go back to the basics. And the basics of life, of gratitude, of edification, of use your ears and your mouth. You have 2 ears, you have one mouth. Use them accordingly. Mm-hmm. And so always listen more than you talk, even though you and I, Robert, are professional speakers. I would say the basics is everything. And then live a life of gratitude. Don't live a life of what you hate. I just went through this in a description. I was describing to people, I hung out with them for 2 days before they knew I was hanging out with them. And then I had to get up and do a speech. And I said, here, I can tell you what that person hates. That person hates that we talk too long. That person hates this. That person hates that. I said, you know what's weird? If I had to do your eulogy today, all I could do is say what you hate versus tell everyone what you love. Mm-hmm. Not once did I hear how much you loved your husband or how much you loved that it was 90 degrees in San Diego or how much you loved that you were on the beach. And imagine if you started leading your life with what you love versus what you hate. I tell people I love my sandwiches without tomatoes on them. I don't say I hate tomatoes. Mm-hmm. I just say I love my sandwiches without tomatoes. My wife says, I love it when you come home from a week of travel and you mow the lawn first thing, Troy. I love it when you do that.
Good stuff. Listen, Troy, you're living your life in a very, very good way. And that's from an older guy speaking to a younger guy. I really love that. I also love the fact that you're taking care of your sister. Extremely admirable. And I know that you love her to death, but your story is amazing. I knew it would be. There was no doubt in my mind. I'm going to say one other thing to you. And you can listen to my podcast and you'll find I don't say this all the time, but you and I are now friends. Whether you like it or not, you're stuck, brother. And so I'm up in Jackson a lot. I'll be up there in about 3 weeks or so, but we are going to meet. We're going to spend a little bit of time together. And I cannot wait to actually give you a hug, shake your hand and all that. But Lions, all the stuff that we just talked about, you can find in the show notes page here at rustylionacademy.com. And remember also, share this. If you got some stuff out of this, and I know that you did, Lions, this is kind of stuff that keeps people moving forward. Share this with somebody else. Don't be stingy with this. Give it to them. Troy, listen, buddy, I bid you farewell. It has been an absolute honor having you on the show today. And I really, really wish you, your sister, and your mom the very best that life has to offer. Okay?
Robert, thank you very much. Blessings to you all. I appreciate you and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Awesome, brother. You take care.